Right. Welcome, everyone. I know this 12 o'clock hour is always such a busy time for people joining and running up their meetings right to the hour, but I will go ahead and get it started just because I know we have a really full agenda today as we have more people join. Welcome. I am Katie. I'm the community director here at GDI. I see a lot of familiar names on the call today, so I know most of you are familiar with our programming. I did just want to do a quick little plug and reminder that as we are working to create, a really inclusive and accessible space in the tech future and development of software skills and learning how to code and program through our classes and projects and events. March is really a big month for us. We have lots of intro classes in different areas between data science, programming, front end, and some Python cohorts. So we do hope that you are able to check out our agenda. We will, obviously, all of you have familiarity with our program and our links, but I do want to give a quick plug for the new programs that will be rolling out in March. And I know a lot of you have been a part of this ongoing series with Computer Futures. We're really lucky to have Tyler and Susan here with us again from the BI team, who work specifically in recruiting and can talk about interviewing and job opportunities. It's a really fantastic resource for us and a valuable partnership. So we're thrilled to have this opportunity for them to once again give us some sort of hands-on and experiential information to really prepare those of you that are in the job seeking space for your careers. So I'm going to hand it over to Elizabeth now, Breaking the Glass, to give a little bit more information on the partnership before she hands it over to Tyler and Susan to kick off today's event.
Thank you so much, Katie. Before we get started on our event, just again, thank you to Girl Develop It for hosting us. This is our second session for our career development series partnership that we've been doing with the Girl Develop It data chapter. We have done previous events in the past, so we're always so excited to come in and be a resource for this community as well. So again, I'm Elizabeth Lamb. I'm the partnerships manager for Breaking the Glass. We're a corporate social responsibility program within Computer Futures S3, which specializes in STEM staffing. So what we do is we partner with tech companies and nonprofits to provide free personalized programming on DEI and women's career development topics. We've provided webinars for our partners like Walmart, IBM, Charter Communications. Let me know if you want to learn more or if you want to collaborate on a program or an event. We're always looking for innovative ways to create more resources for folks wanting to get further along in their tech journey. So I'll be going on mute and off video till the end of the program so I can start providing resources in the chat. We're going to have a survey at the end. Also, just other information as well, our upcoming events, and yeah, complete the survey, sign up for other programs, and we're just excited to kick this off. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up the slides and get this passed over to Tyler.
Thanks, Liz and Katie. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining our second session with GDI. Today, we'll be focusing on the next kind of steps in the recruitment process, which is the first one, I guess, which is getting interview ready and just preparing yourself for that first conversation with hiring managers and recruitment teams within other firms. I'm Tyler Miracle, and I work on our business intelligence and data team here at Computer Futures. And I'm hosting with my colleague, Susan Mire, if you want to introduce yourself as well.
Hey guys, it's good to see you all again. I'm really excited to kind of give you guys some tips on, how to get interview ready. So we do this a lot as recruiters and just working with all candidates to get prep for interviews all the way till the end and just getting feedback. So we definitely are here as helpful resources. So we're excited to kind of share some information with you both, or with all of you.
If you guys have any questions throughout, feel free to just blurt it out or put it in the chat, and it can very much be a conversation. It doesn't need to just be Susan and I blurting information at you the entire time. Elizabeth, you can go to the next slide. Perfect.
Okay, cool. I can kind of start off with just like initially kind of like what it's like scheduling the interview and all of that. So it basically is the very first thing that kind of gets you started with any sort of either it's internal company, like internal role, like at your current company, or if it's a new role with a different company, basically working with either a recruiter or internally or externally to basically set up some time to have an interview with the hiring manager. So I guess my first piece of advice when it comes to this is like, obviously it's a chance for you to kind of explore your options here. You really can take some time to think about like what you want in a role. And especially as you kind of get sorted and like basically at the beginning stages of an interview, you just want to make sure that this is a priority for you. You're ready to start doing that. So I just like keep that in mind is like, this isn't interviewing can be as much as you want it to be. And it's something that like we always encourage our candidates when working with them is like, are you ready to actually like start doing this? Because interview processes can be lengthened or they can be really quick. So you just kind of have to be in the right mindset going into it. But basically some suggestions are, while you're working with your recruiter to basically figure out when you want to interview, you want to think about your schedule. If you're either currently working or if you are not working, depending on that, like your day-to-day schedule could be, very open or very tight. So thinking about times that work best for you. We work with clients all over the country, so time zones can be a thing. So just like taking those into consideration. But, I always try to suggest someone like if you don't really have a defined schedule, just thinking about like pockets of time, like, oh, I guess, in the mornings between 8 and 10 a.m. like work really well because you have no meetings. Just thinking about that and being able to provide that information to a recruiter or just, to anyone is definitely helpful. And then also another thing is definitely making sure you have ample time to prepare before the interview. Like we'll have managers reach out immediately and want to kind of, set up an interview for a candidate like that day. And I mean, there's some people who are, a little bit better at, being on the fly and, doing interviews, especially if you've had some experience. But for the most part, interviewing can be scary. It can be, intimidating. So making sure you have ample time to prepare is really important. You want to make sure that this is, you're putting your best foot forward. And if that means, taking 24 hours to prepare, then do that. Like obviously be vocal, but also making sure you're committed because you do want to be able to compete with other people who are also interviewing within that time frame. So I think those are both like pretty important things just to keep in mind overall. But yeah, I think that's my suggestions. I know, Tyler, you had a couple of things you kind of wanted to say about it as well.
Yeah, and Susan she's on the candidate relationship and recruiting side, and I manage our sales partnerships with our clients and things like that. So all of my suggestions and tips and tricks are all going to primarily be sales focused. So again, if you have any questions about them, just let me know. My biggest one is to create urgency. When you are speaking with a recruiter or speaking with a manager about a job, you want to let them know everywhere else you're interviewing, when they're scheduled, things like that, and create as much urgency around your candidacy for this role as you can, just to try to work through the process as quickly as you can. You don't want time kills deals. That's what we say all the time in recruitment. If you're interviewing on Monday and then you don't hear feedback until Friday, and then it pushes the next interview into the next week, you don't want that to happen. You want to always stay in the forefront of the manager's mind. And then another way to help create urgency and kind of push the process along is to give as much availability as you can, but in small windows, or like in the most recent or most upcoming window you have. So I always tell my candidates, I want to see the next 2 to 3 days, every availability you possibly have. And when I say 2 to 3 days, I don't ever want to send availability for an entire week, because a manager might wait until the last day to book the interview when they could do it earlier, but since I've given that much availability, they've just pushed it out. So give as much availability as you can as soon as possible. And my rule of thumb is 2 to 3 days, like the next 2 to 3 days, and try to have 2 to 3 hours per day of availability, whether that's early in the morning, whenever works for you, but just giving the manager as many options as you can, because they're going to make interviewing you a priority, just like you need to make time for the interview a priority on your end too. I think that's it. We can go to the next slide. Perfect. And so this slide is about research and preparation. So all of the work that you're going to put in before the call even starts. Our main thing on the recruitment side from the sales portion is making sure you have as much information on the manager, the client, the team, and the role as possible. So we're going to be sending you notes on the manager, kind of how we've worked with them in the past, different types of roles that they hire for, their kind of how they interview. Is it going to be more of a brainstorming session where there's kind of understanding how you think and problem solve, or are they going to rapid fire technical questions at you? And just give you as much information about that person that you're going to be having a conversation with. And we do that through sending you their LinkedIn pages, sending you kind of, if we have their resume, if they've had different roles in the past, in the same space that they're managing right now, like we'll let you know kind of they've been a technical architect before. So they could ask you very technical questions, or do they stick on the people management side? And it'll be kind of behavioral, understanding how you think and problem solve and work through those bottlenecks. And my biggest piece of advice is to ask your recruiter, or if you're not working through a recruitment agency, is to ask your contact at the company kind of what is their interview style. Is it going to be conversational, or is it going to be rapid fire questioning? Because you want to understand, do I just need to riddle off every skill, or do I want a high level, or do I really need to get into nitty gritty right away and give them a lot of detail and discuss my positions and past projects? Because understanding that up front will cut down on, if you're diving into too much detail in the beginning and they're just not ready to hear all of that, they might stop you and then things get awkward. So understanding is all you can about the interviewer, the job, and the team as upfront is like my biggest piece of advice.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to make sure I wasn't on mute. Yeah, and I completely agree with everything Tyler said. And kind of on the other side of things, like obviously, we're, besides that, and like the fact that recruiters are obviously here to help you, like we want to send you as much information. One of our biggest pieces of advice for every single person we ever work with is to really like take a look at your resume. And I know we kind of also went over this a little bit in last session, because a lot of it is making sure your resume is up to date and you're very comfortable talking about anything that's listed on there. So, what I always suggest is like really look at what's on there. Like think about like what you've done with your background and what you've done at your previous companies and how those could be potentially applied to this role. Like what industry do you have experience in? Like what tools have you worked with? What soft skills have you attained throughout your background? Obviously if you've been in school and you've gone or like a, boot camp course, like what types of school projects could be applied while, thinking and like while you're interviewing, because a lot of those things are going to be asked. Like a lot of questions can be very scenario based or situational. And so you want to be able to use your previous experience to be able to talk about that in the interview. So, making a list and writing all of that out, I think is obviously the easiest way to do it, because it makes you like really sit down and think about it. But, everyone learns differently. So if it's not writing it out, you can also rely on your recruiter to do some like role play. I've done that with people who aren't, as good at communicating. Again, like interviewing is hard, and for you to be able to articulate like what you want to say in an interview takes practice. So like rely on your recruiter to help you with that, because we are here to basically make sure that you can get the job as much as possible. So we want to help you as much as possible. And then on like to back up on Tyler's point about like getting insight from your recruiter, it's definitely very important. I would say that we can, you know, we work with a lot of clients where we've placed candidates already at that company. And so we've already dealt with, you know, interviews, and we've gotten feedback from, you know, a variety of candidates, and like whether they've gotten offers or not, we still have a lot of insight on how those interviews went down, to honestly sometimes even to the T of getting, you know, interview questions from them. And so we can be that like added resource when it comes to giving you that insight, because then you can prepare and kind of think about your own, you know, situations and how they apply to those questions. So I really just can't emphasize it enough. Like, just try to use your recruiter as much to your advantage, because I think it will definitely help, especially when you're, you know, preparing and doing your research. Definitely don't be afraid to ask questions. But yep, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, so we're going to talk about all tips and tricks that Susan and I have learned over the past 4 years of being with CF. And my biggest one in the interview is to sell yourself. And the first way to selling yourself to employers is to tie everything you are saying back to them and their needs. I tell all of our candidates and all of our salespeople too, think about advertisements that you see on TV. You never see, an example that I always use is McDonald's. You never see them saying, "Hi, we're McDonald's. We make burgers. Please buy more burgers." It's always about, they show a hot, juicy burger and how you specifically will feel with that experience. And so you want to make sure you're tying everything that you can say, painting a picture, and how the client will feel with the value that you're adding to their team and for their specific needs. And that, again, that can be done by really understanding and working with your recruiter that the requirement and how your specific skills apply and add that value. And the first 30 seconds of the interview should typically be, after the managers introduce themselves and everything like that, will be your elevator pitch. And that's your time to shine. And that should be anywhere from 15 to 30 seconds of you just introducing yourself and also really highlighting how you are going to add that value. And we've done programming before with Breaking the Glass, just resume review sessions, but we also work in elevator pitch, like construction sessions. So if anyone wants to do that, we can definitely set you up with recruiters or salespeople to make that happen. And it really comes from getting really familiar with your resume and understanding how your specific projects, background, skills translate to value for the specific goals of that project. And then another really big tip is to quantify your achievements. Metrics sell. Whenever I'm speaking with clients, I'm always trying to attach either a number saved, an added revenue, some sort of metric. And an example of that is by saying, "I led a successful project." No, you led a team that reduced costs by 35%. We were able to shave 4 days off the development period, et cetera, adding numbers to everything. Because that really can, not only, it adds credibility if you've added analytics to your resume, that you were able to run on your productivity and like just anything that has a number to it, add that to your resume, whether it's $1, 1%, or anything like that. Managers love to see that. And then my final piece of advice is to find your rhythm, especially if you're talking about yourself a lot. I find it uncomfortable when I'm talking about myself for 10 minutes. It's just an uncomfortable situation. I think a lot of people find that the same. And the only way to get over that is practice. And so doing mock interviews with Susan and our other recruiters on the team, that's something we can do. Even if it's not for a job that you're working through computer features on, we're happy to do it. And that's really the only way to find that rhythm. So you don't have any awkward pauses or anything like that, is to practice and do the mock interviews.
Yeah, and I was going to add, so if you want to like kind of take a look from the beginning stages of even getting an interview to like obviously talking to a manager, a lot of times along with my teammates, we will, do full-on qualification calls with every candidate that we work with. And so at that point, we're not just submitting anyone to any of these jobs. Like we obviously have to be sold before we can go and sell to a manager. And so this whole elevator pitch, like you're basically giving that elevator pitch to a recruiter because I need to be convinced that you're a good fit for the role in order to convince someone else. So if you think about that, a lot of times people might not even realize that they're actually doing it, but a lot of times I will get more information out of someone by just asking them questions, but it's something to really like take back on from that call to then use to try to create your own little pitch when you're, interviewing. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, again, like I am 100% happy to work with any of you to kind of create that, but a lot of times it's happening without, you might not even realize it's happening. But beyond that, and also to kind of go into like quantifying your achievements, I 100% think that is literally one of the most important things, because we will get pushback all the time from managers just being like, their resume it's not enough. Like we don't really see any, importance to it. Like they're not really showing us their impact at the companies that they're working at. And it doesn't even have to be a company. Like it literally can be your school. It could be your boot camp. It literally could be like a random internship. It's just, you have to be able to explain how that impact led you to some sort of success point. Because that's like what they're going to see to end up wanting to interview you. But, to really think about that in an interview perspective too, like you want to think about how, from beginning to end, how you were able to provide that impact and be able to give that example. I always say that when I'm sending over invites for the interview. But then lastly, like a lot of times we'll get feedback like, oh, they kind of spoke in like more of a team environment. So we're, we, like we did this and we did that, but like that doesn't really like tell anyone like what you did. It's saying what your team did. So you need to start thinking about, even if it was a team like environment and you did work with the team, you still individually contributed in some sort of way. So just try to like highlight on those individual contributions as much as you can in an interview, because that's what they're going to care about. Obviously a lot of these managers want someone who can collaborate well with teams. So you can easily bring it up. You just don't want it to sound like, the team did everything and not just me individually. Just, it's kind of the way that you want to word things, but it also can, take some time. So that's why just a suggestion of like writing out examples or, practicing definitely will help you get there. And then the last thing I wanted to say about kind of like providing project examples and portfolios. So I know a lot of you guys have like GitHub profiles and, sample like tech work from, previous companies or even just on your own time. Like I know a lot of you guys like to dabble in things on your off time and use those to your advantage. Like you didn't just create it for a reason. Like, I mean, honestly, a lot of times we don't even, like some managers will ask for samples, but we don't really send those all the time. Like we will if we're, trying, if it's something that you're really passionate about, but for the most part, like you should do that in your interview. Like you should offer to share your portfolio with them. You should offer to share samples. I think it really goes a long way when, you show that you're proactive and that you are very interested in the topic. And I think that can make for a very engaging conversation. So just think about that, also as you're kind of working through the interview and making sure that you can kind of back yourself up in any possible way.
100%. And I want to add one more thing that I forgot to mention. If you, on your resume, have as many skills in anything you've been involved in, even if it's not related to the job, but I want everyone to be mindful. If you put something on your resume that on like the skills and experience, or you have it on a project where you used a specific tool, even if it's not in the job description, it is fair game in the interview. We've had multiple interviews where, just as an example, AWS, like using AWS was, the client was using it, or somewhere in the company, they would have the opportunity to work with a cloud platform. And it was on their resume. It was not in the job description though. It was never talked about, but the candidate had it on their resume. And the manager asked a question about it, just like, oh, I saw this on your resume. And the candidate was not versed in the tool and was not able to talk about using it, working with it, or just anything at all. And there weren't even technical questions. It was kind of just like, oh, tell me what you've done. And the candidate didn't get the job for the simple reason of they put something on their resume that wasn't truthful, or they were just trying to bolster their experience, maybe thinking that it wasn't on the job description, they're not going to ask me. So be very careful about what you're putting on your resume. And you can talk to your recruiter about that too. Kind of if you've used a tool, but you haven't been hands-on, you kind of have dabbled with it, or it was on the team and you didn't have access to it, but you know what it is and have working knowledge of it, talk to your recruiter and ask, how do I word that on my resume to show I've worked with it, but I don't know how to manipulate it or use it on a day-to-day basis. I think that's it. Is there one more slide? Okay.
Follow up and next steps. So the first bullet point actually is, I mean, it's basically one way, like when you're in an interview, you should always have a list of questions to ask the manager. It's very important. I think it shows your interest. I think it shows that you did your research. Obviously, if there's something that you're very curious about that maybe even your recruiter wasn't able to kind of like elaborate on, it's potential that you could ask it in the interview. But I would also say, like, afterward, you could think about how it went and write a list of questions that you might have that you'd like to follow up on. I'll get on calls afterward with my candidate and after their interview, and I'll just be like, how did you think it went? And, if there's concerns they have, or if there's questions that they want me to follow up on, obviously I'm going to do everything I can to get you those answers, or at least address them myself, because I might already know. So just thinking about that, because you don't want to just get off the interview and be like, yeah, it was good. Like, you want to think about like really like what happened, because obviously the more that you can think about just like what happened, like obviously maybe taking notes during it, like those things will definitely just get you more kind of like, I don't know, I guess maybe committed, or just kind of just ready to kind of think about this role to like the next step. So kind of going into that, some things that we definitely like and ask for are references 100%. Well, we typically ask for them way before interviews even happen, but we use those references to honestly sell you into the role. I've literally gotten job offers for candidates by using their references, like really great kind of accolades about them, to then be like, look, like this person has this second experience, or second perspective from someone else. I think this could really apply to like what you're looking for. So it definitely helps. And then also sending a thank you note. I definitely think it's nice and respectful. It's not mandatory by any means, but I do think a lot of times you can use the thank you note to kind of elaborate further post interview on why you think you're a good fit for the job. And I think that it's just something that managers appreciate. And I think it stands out because not everyone does it. I definitely don't get a lot of people who send them to me, but when they do, a lot of times I wouldn't say it like leads to an offer, but typically that person does end up getting offered, maybe because they felt like it was a good fit or something, but it's always just a good option if you're thinking about doing it. And then the last thing I kind of wanted to say around this is, like, I know interviewing, like typically people are interviewing in multiple companies, and they have a lot going on, and it's hard for you to kind of think about like what you want or what you don't want. Just if you have a lot of companies reaching out and you want to kind of weigh out all your options, I would just 100% be prepared to know if you want to accept an offer or not after any job interview. And the reason I say that is because we have had plenty of times where people will get an offer and then they're just like not ready to accept. Like they're just like, I don't know yet. I don't know. I need to kind of think about it. And I mean, that's fine. Obviously, if you need to think about it, that's fine. But like, maybe we should discuss what you need to think about, because that could be something that should have been addressed like a lot earlier. And there's so many reasons that people look for jobs. There's so many motivating, like so many factors that are involved. So like what would motivate you to take this job is really important to think about. And just like being prepared for that. Like, obviously it's just something that a lot of people may not think about until they're done with the end. They're like, oh, I didn't even think that I should probably like know if I want to take this job or not. But a lot of time, I mean, obviously if it's okay if you don't want to take the job. I just think it's important to like definitely think about it and be prepared to give that type of feedback to your recruiter. But yeah, I think that is everything that I have to say about it. But again, obviously we are open to any questions or anything about that. But yeah, it's typically how the interview process goes.
And my last point on kind of the follow-up steps, when you're working with an agency, with Susan and I or any other recruitment agency, we will kind of set that call to action, like laying out the next steps for you. But it all goes back to creating urgency and really understanding, I want to get, if it is something you want to move forward with, like move as quickly as you can. You don't want to leave any lag time or anything like that. As like I said earlier, like time kills deals. So move as fast as you can. And what Susan was saying too is understand if you want to move forward in the process, do a debrief with your recruiter and be as honest as you can, because that's what, as a salesperson, that's exactly what I do, but with the client. We do a debrief after every interview. It might not be right after it, like you would do it with your recruiter, but they'll send me an email, yes or no, and then we'll give them a call and say, okay, let's walk through this. Like, why are they a yes? Why do you want to move forward? Or if it's a no, tell me why, so we can either fix that if we feel strongly about the candidate and it's not a real no, we can fix it. Or like, where were we missing with the recruitment team? What do we need to go and search for that's different from this candidate? But do as much prep work as you can, but also do as much after interview work with the debrief to really understand, is this an opportunity that I want to pursue? Awesome. Yeah, does anyone have any questions? I know we threw a lot at you guys. We have a question. How do you handle multiple offers? How much time do you have to decide on a job offer? Multiple offers. I'm on the sales side, so I don't really do a lot of handling that, so I can let Susan take this. But typically, if it's a contract job, and we do a lot of contract recruitment, we do permanent placements as well, but it's primarily contract. They have a first, second, and third choice. So I would move as quickly as you can. If you get an offer on a Friday, it's okay to ask until Monday or Tuesday to answer them, but just know there is a backup. And if it really is something that you see yourself moving forward with, then you need to move quickly. And that's why doing debriefs with your team or your recruiter throughout the process are key, because we can go back and look at like those motivating factors, what you liked throughout the process, what you didn't like, and kind of like where we sit today. But I'll let Susan talk a little bit about like multiple offers and timeline too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it happens a lot. So I think, okay, so if you're referring to full-time employment, I mean, it's the same thing. Like, obviously, I think if you know that if you have multiple job offers and you know that you want one, then obviously go for it and, say that you want to move forward. But I always suggest making like a pros and cons list of like any type of company that you're working with, and then think about like one job or the other, and then think about like what it would take for you to kind of like eliminate one of those jobs. So I always ask people that, like, if they have final interviews and we're trying to kind of gauge what they're interested in, I literally will just be like, what is it going to take for you to take this job? Is it like, because a lot, again, everyone has different factors. Like money's not everyone's motivating factor. It could be like remote work versus full-time, or it could be like, I mean, it literally could be anything, but just thinking about those things is really important. And that's why I think like we're trying to be here to provide this session, because we want to help you realize like the amount of thought and preparation that should go into things while you're interviewing, and just being prepared to like decide if you're willing to lose one of these job offers for something else, or if you just need some time to really think about what you want in a company. But ultimately, I mean, I know that full-time roles, like sometimes they're a little bit like more, I guess they're a little bit more inclined to let you kind of decide longer than a contract role. So I can't really speak too much on that, but I do know in general, like you either know or you don't know. And if there's a reason that you're not accepting one of the jobs, then I think you should think about why that's the case, and then maybe see if it relates to the other job offer. Or I would just say no and keep interviewing. But we try to, like, as recruiters, we try to like get that information before we were putting you into the interview process, because it's something that we don't want to, you know, deal with towards the end of the interview process, where we have to basically tell the manager that you are not able to decide because you're still interviewing. Like it basically doesn't look great. So it's obviously like we can be transparent, but we need to like just make sure that we're on the same page with our clients as much as we are with our candidates. But I hope that helps. I really, yeah, I wish I could speak a little bit more to the full-time stuff, but in general, I think the pros and cons list can work for any type of job regardless.
Yeah, and we break it down to in kind of like 3 steps, and it can work in contract and full-time roles. Tie it back to your motivating factors. What made you apply for new jobs? And are you getting the things that you either were looking for, or the things that you didn't like about your current role in the new one? And if you have multiple offers, do it across all of them. And then look at like the day-to-day, the role specifically. Is that for all of the offers? Are you going to be doing day-to-day what you were setting yourself out to look for a new role for? And then also future. Are you learning new skills? Is there upward mobility? Things like that. So kind of past, looking at your motivators, day to day, current, and then future, kind of setting it up like that. And you can do it across all of your offers. And then getting people's opinions, even if it's not a recruiter that you're working with, if you're doing it all on your own and you're just applying to full-time roles, ask friends, ask to speak to other people who work at the company. If we have contractors who are working at a client and we get an offer and the candidate that got the offer is a little weary, we always offer to let them speak to employees of that company and kind of give them an idea of what it would be like to work there. All the resources you can. And if you make the wrong decision, it's possible, we're human, but just do as much research and spend as much time as you need, I guess, but don't lose an opportunity because you're overthinking it. Trust your gut. Any more questions?
I had a quick question. So for, obviously y'all are in touch with hiring managers day in and day out. Someone can get, trained up on a lot of like the technical sides of it that matches the job description, but what have you seen from a personality or like colleague assessment, be a bit trendy, that you would like people to, make sure that they consider a little bit more before jumping into an interview, whether it's like describing your working style, what are your career priorities, those, more personal questions.
We definitely, we always ask, or at least I try to ask all of my candidates when I'm doing my qualification call to kind of give me a little bit of a gist of that, just because I want to know why you're even looking. And I think that can open up an entire door of like, what is going on in your current situation. I will say that as much as technical experience is important, like, I mean, I would say like team environment and like just making sure that you fit with the group, like it's definitely a thing. And obviously not every company is going to work for everyone. That's obviously why no one works at all the same companies. But I mean, I know there's certain, you know, like managers that we work with that like would prefer a certain type of profile. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, but I also think like as a recruiter, it's really like that is another thing that is really important for us to be able to like highlight the skills you do have and really try to like sell those things to our managers. They don't have to be, no one is perfect. So like obviously just trying to highlight on like the things that you know, could like soft skills, like highlighting on those if those are really great. Because a lot of times managers are looking for someone who's a really good communicator or has, you know, really good like personality. Like we've had people who like managers be like, oh, well, we really need someone who's like great at taking criticism. And you're like, okay, like, I don't know exactly why. We could probably ask a little bit more. But I mean, if that's something that's important, then I really probably am going to ask all candidates I'm working with, like, all right, what's your team environment like? Like, are you getting constructive criticism from your current teams? Is that something that you think you're going to be okay with? Or is it going to be something that's going to make you like, you know, less motivated to keep working? So you know, that is a very important personality thing. And like, not everyone can take certain criticisms like one way or the other. But I guess I hope that answers the question, but it is a lot just to do with how we try to qualify people and make sure that we can translate the highlights over to our managers.
Absolutely. So just more on the same page of, you know, making sure you're communicating who you fully are to your recruiter so that they can find, you know, the best match for you.
I definitely see a lot more managers doing panel interviews. So it's not a lot of one-on-ones anymore. I mean, that's not to say that they're not like that, but I've just seen a lot more panel interviews where they're doing hypothetical kind of situational questions that are designed not only to work through your technical abilities, but also like how you problem solve and how you work on a team. So I think just understanding that you don't want to zero in on technical stuff, but you also want to think about how you would work with a team in that situation and really understanding the situation. Like if they're giving you a case or the hypothetical situation, really understand it and go in knowing that they not only want to hear how you actually solve the problem, but the process of how you thought about getting there, working with the team and things like that. So they're kind of like hybrid questions now where it's not as black and white, like, oh, they want to hear about how I work, or no, they want to hear that I can use SQL on this one, you know?
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else? If there's any questions also like afterward that you guys think of, you can definitely ask us and we can shoot over a response over email. Offer negotiation. This is so funny because I literally feel like I just it's not full-time work, but we just had a candidate get a job offer and he was going to, you know, work in this new role. And then he actually ended up calling us like a week later after accepting and was like, my company counter offered me with this new role and like I cannot pass it up. And so, I mean, those things are obviously going to happen. I know maybe this isn't like a counter offer specifically, but I think when it comes to any sort of offer negotiation, again, really think about what matters to you. I think it just depends on if you're looking for like money, then and if you're not working with a recruiter and you're working directly with the hiring manager, then I would just be like straight up, honestly, if I were you, like, especially with money, I would shoot for more. And then typically you meet in the middle. So always shoot for more. And then if you're open to meeting in the middle, then obviously that's a way to like trying to boost kind of the pay situation. I think that works for literally anything. Like obviously we would work with you on that too. If we had a job with you, like pay is obviously a very important thing to talk about, but if it's something, what can you negotiate aside from salary? I mean, start date, I guess, if that's something you could negotiate.
Remote work.
Remote
Yeah,
work.
always look at the entire package, whether it be like equity, PTO,
Stock
remote,
options, yeah.
everything. And that's going to be all on the full-time side. But on contract, it could be flexible hours. I mean, that can be perm too, but always understand the entire package. And that can be talking with their HR team to kind of get like that benefits packet and everything like that they typically send after you've accepted an offer. But you can request as much information up front as you want. And if they're making an offer to you, they're going to get you that information. But the biggest things up front I would think about would be equity, salary, PTO, remote, flexible hours. If they'll pay for any like travel for you to go to conferences, get certifications and kind of upskill yourself, that's a huge thing. And then a signing bonus. A lot of companies right now, you can negotiate a signing bonus because that can come out of like a different capital expenditures versus like their budget for that specific team. So it depends on like where the money is coming from internally with the business too. Definitely.
But again, like always start high. Like literally any of these things can be kind of like start high and know that you're trying to negotiate. So, I mean, we do a lot of negotiation with like clients, and you want to stand your ground and not give up, but like you also want to be clear of what you want. And I mean, typically if someone wants you, like they're gonna try to work with you. They're not gonna be like, this is an ultimatum, like I'm either not doing it or what, but like I'm willing to work with you and I want to be honest with you, and like this is like what I'm feeling. And I mean, people appreciate transparency.
100%. And always if you have multiple offers, you can let them know or let your recruiter know, I have multiple offers and this one they're offering me this here. Like, can you get close to that? Can you match it? Things like that. Be as truthful as you can be. But working with a recruiter is always the best option because they can tell you like, with this manager specifically, like this will work or this won't work. But just have as much information going into a negotiation conversation that you can, whether that be like other offers, other jobs that are available, and kind of where your resume stacks against and like putting a dollar figure on it. And I always tell people a range in everything is best, whether that's a number figure, PTO, things like that, remote hours, like always have a range. And it can be a range that's like lofty to like where you're still happy. Because I don't like giving a specific number right out of the gate because you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah, you can negotiate without having a higher offer. I mean,
oh
you don't have to, I mean, obviously you don't have to give all that information away, but like, you don't have to use another offer to kind of like use it as a weapon to get more money. Like you can just like say like this is what you want, and like you can even back it up, like I have a family, or I am traveling this year, or like there's just so many things you could say to get you to negotiate that offer. I mean, I think that it's just important for you to know why you want to negotiate it, and just again stand your ground on that. But I hope that helps. And Zara, I saw that you had your hand was raised.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not sure how to type this question exactly, so it would be better to ask it.
Go for it.
I wanted to ask, when we reach out to you for help, do you only work with like specific companies, or if I was to already know a specific company that I was looking into, would that still be okay to reach out for your services and apply to that company?
100%. So if we already have a relationship with that company, it would be as simple as me as a salesperson reaching out to specific managers that I either know, we've worked with, or just anyone that I would want to target. And we can get your resume in front of them and kind of work that way to find out A, if they have jobs, and B, let's get you interviewing. And like what's available. But if not, if we don't have a relationship with them already in place, then we can still try to work with them and kind of send them like, hey, this is a prospective candidate. We've never worked together. Here's kind of the value that me, Tyler at Computer Futures could add to working with your team. Here's a candidate that we were working with who's interested in working for you. Can we work this way? And that's how we could proceed like that, if that helps.
Okay, yeah, that actually helps a lot. And then, sorry, I forgot my other question, but I'm sure I'll remember it.
It's okay. But yeah, we do have a few roles that are open right now, and we can send a list of all of them to Katie. So if anyone is interested in any of them or wants to have a conversation about them, we definitely can. But one specifically that we're working on right now, it is a more it's not a junior level role, but it's more of a analyst / data scientist, and it's working with a healthcare federal contracting company. It's completely remote, and it just doesn't require 5, 10, 15 years with any like hard skill tools. And it's a role that just opened up this morning. Again, we can send information to everyone so they can see, but it is an analytics data science role, kind of looking at data from a data management team. They put it all together, so you won't be doing any like ETL work or data cleansing or anything like that. But looking at patterns, identifying patterns in specific data within the healthcare industry, and then potentially working with more senior data scientists on the team and creating statistical models and things like that.
Sounds like a cool role.
It is. I'll send it around. We just talked to them this morning, so it's fresh in my mind. I don't even have my notes typed up from the conversation just yet, but I'll send it around so everyone can take a look.
I actually just remembered my question. Answered it a little bit. So that was actually going to be part of my question. I'm not really sure the type of role that, because I'm just getting into the tech industry, so I'm not really sure the type of role that I would qualify for. And so would that be something that I would be able to work with a recruiter to see, what kind of skills I already possess?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you could come in with a baseline of like, yeah, some of the points that you have, or just like previous experience and like the things that you think you're good at, and we can, work together to figure that out. I do think a lot of times to kind of get yourself into the door, a lot of people do kind of go the analyst route or like the developer route, just because you're like analyst, at least, is you're pretty much doing the communication portion of it while also getting the exposure to tech experience, whereas like a developer might be a little bit more tech focused. So I would say those are probably the two ones I see the most as like kind of like first roles in the tech space. Because I mean, even like a business analyst, like that doesn't even need to be that technical, but it's a good way for you to get in the door and realize that you like the analytics work. You could also be working with teams that might be doing a little bit more of the tech stuff, and that's how you can kind of get yourself like versed within it. But obviously we can definitely set up some time to maybe go over some of your experience and see, what would be best suited for what you're looking for.
And Zara too, and everyone, recruiters, I don't want people to think that you can only reach out if there's a job specifically that you're interested in. We want to work with you, even if you don't see a job posting from us or anything like that. Computer Futures has a program called the Accredited Professionals Program, where it's our network of people that we're working with who we know are looking for jobs right now. And we might not have a job for them immediately, but we have them in our network and we know they're looking. So we're always, when we're talking to managers or speaking with clients, we always have like those resumes in a database right in front of us. So once we're putting everything in and things like that, we can know exactly when to reach out to you. And then we'll have all your contact information. So we don't have to have a job for you to work with you right now. We can get to know you a bit and understand kind of what you need and work with you prior to having a job for you.
But yeah, if you have any other questions, just feel free to ask us afterward or whenever.
And if you want to make if anyone wants to make a pro and con list about current offers that they have, I'm happy to do it with you. That's exciting. If you have multiple offers, that's very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've dropped their LinkedIn profiles as well. So get connected with them as well. That's a great place to just kind of, constantly see like what they're posting about open roles, other areas, and like you can get their email from them as well. Tyler and Susan, I don't know if you want to like drop that in the chat real quick. And then we've also sent just like a community email. If you just like, even if you don't have someone in data, but you know that Computer Futures is big advocates for helping people in the tech industry, you can have someone send their resume to community programs at S3 and we'll get it sent to the correct recruiter and they can reach out and start that candidate accreditation program too, and then get some feedback on the resume.
Absolutely.
It's nice. Yeah, it was nice talking with all of you guys. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much, as always, for this really awesome opportunity. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Fantastic. Yeah. And then Breaking the Glass has an event tomorrow with IBM on personal career advocacy. So come check that out as well. I feel like it's going to be a great stepping stone to this interview prep conversation that we just had.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it. Thanks again, all.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.